It would cost a lot of money to put my mom in a facility, wouldn't it? So you better take care of her at our home.
What are you talking about? I can't. I have work.
Huh? Then you and I are getting a divorce.
Saying that out of nowhere, my husband hit me with divorce papers. Was he trying to intimidate me? I immediately signed the divorce papers and started packing my things. Don't go regretting what you just did, alright? My name's Carla, and I'm 39. Just a regular housewife. I live with my husband, Jude, and my daughter, Lauren. My daughter is now in her second year of middle school and is excelling in her studies and clubs. I have been working part-time since she started elementary school so that she can pursue the career of her choice in the future, and we have been able to save up a good amount of money. My husband works hard, but his salary is not enough to support our family. So we try to save as much as I can and make ends meet. I always make sure my husband has his lunch and water, buy clothes secondhand, use cheap makeup, and things like that. I'm all about saving money every day. Thanks to these efforts, I think we get to lead a decent life. I like to splurge a bit on family birthdays and when my daughter has long breaks from school. I also make memories with my family by going to nice restaurants and going to places on vacations. By doing so, we were all enjoying reasonably happy days as a family. But it wasn't until about 7 years ago that I was able to spend happy days like this. For a while, I was having a really hard time, and it was all because of my mother-in-law, Susan. Susan would just non-stop bully me, and I really suffered mentally because of her. Susan's been acting all mean towards me since I married Jude. Are you the person Jude said I do to? You're not exactly radiating happiness. The college you went to wasn't that great. You're just average looking with no outstanding qualities. I was really upset with Susan for saying those things to me when we first saw each other. Still, I had to visit my in-laws for Christmas and New Year's, so I saw them. But every time I did, my mother-in-law gave me dirty looks. You really can't do housework, can you? Do you ever cook Jude anything good to eat? Oh my goodness. I better steer clear of you or I'll have nothing but bad luck. Susan was never nice in the way she talked to me. My father-in-law used to warn her when he caught her, but my mother-in-law would often call me out when neither my father-in-law nor husband were present, so it was tricky to deal with her. Even when I told her to knock it off, she kept on snickering and looking down on me like she always does. So, I went to my husband for help, but all he said was,
My mom can be a bit blunt, but she does really like you, Carla.
Susan kept on bullying me even after our daughter was born. I told you to have a boy, didn't I? How come you got pregnant with a girl? Susan's comment made me really angry because obviously I couldn't control the baby's gender. Susan totally ignored my daughter and didn't want to have anything to do with my daughter. Every time we went to my in-laws' place as a family, my father-in-law was the one who spent time with my daughter. Susan was really getting on my nerves and wouldn't stop telling me to have a son next. She was seriously giving me a hard time. The hardest thing for me was that I had to live with her. The whole living together thing started after my father-in-law passed away. Susan wanted my husband to move in with her because she thought living alone would be tough. I made it clear to my husband that I didn't want to do that at all, but Susan wouldn't stop and begged him. My husband was like,
Mom needs help, so we gotta be there for her.
And he agreed with moving in with Susan like it's a big deal or something. So, we ended up living together even though I didn't agree to it. From that point on, my days have been pure torture. Susan would constantly criticize me, pointing out everything I did wrong, and it made me feel so drained. On top of that, when my daughter wanted to play with Susan and said, Grandma, let's play, Susan yelled at her to be quiet and stay away. My daughter started bawling because Susan got mad out of nowhere. And then Susan got even more angry at her for being loud. And of course, I couldn't just sit there watching that happen. What are you doing, Susan? Why are you making Lauren cry?
Oh, zip it. I don't want anything to do with my granddaughter. She can go play somewhere else, where I won't see her.
She's just too much. I hit my breaking point this time. Something inside me just couldn't take it anymore. So, when my husband came home from work, I immediately told him about it. Susan made Lauren cry today.
Huh? Are you serious?
She straight up said she doesn't want anything to do with a granddaughter like Lauren. Can you believe it? I can't take it anymore. We really need to stop living with your mom right away.
No way. But it'll be rough for Mom to be on her own, won't it?
She's totally healthy, so it's not going to be tough for her, right? Susan has just been lazy for the past 6 months. Just so you know, she's always out having a good time and she just wants me to do the housework.
No, I don't think that's what she means, though.
If you're only going to side with your mom, I'll just leave here, even if it's just me and Lauren.
What?
Anyway, you have to decide quickly about this, got it? For now, I'm going to take Lauren with me and we're going back to my parents' house.
What? Hey, wait a minute.
I had packed my bags before my husband came home. So I told my husband everything I wanted to say and left their house with my daughter. Susan was all,
I didn't do anything wrong. Just go.
She was going off on me and my daughter while we were getting ready at the door, and I seriously thought then that I really don't like her. Then a few days later, my husband came to my parents' house and apologized.
I want you to come back because we'll stop living with my mom.
So I made it clear to my husband that I have a condition for him. Lauren and I are cutting ties with your mom from now on. Can you please understand and respect that?
Okay, I got it.
So I'm giving my husband another chance after he made his promise. Lauren was just starting school and my husband was a good dad, so divorce wasn't even on my mind. But living with Susan was unbearable, so I had to convince my husband to change his decision. So we stopped living with Susan, and now it's just us 3 as a family. I got a little job on the side, made some new friends, and found some inner peace too. I haven't been interacting with Susan, and it's definitely helped lower my stress levels. But now, things are getting annoying again. This all happened on one weekend. My husband got a call from the hospital.
Wait, what? My mom collapsed? Alright, I'll be there as soon as possible.
My husband panicked when he finished the call and filled me in on what was happening.
It looks like my mom fell unconscious. So, I gotta go to the hospital right away.
Oh, alright.
Carla, are you coming too?
Nope, I'm not going.
Oh, okay.
I'm worried about Susan passing out and got taken to the hospital, but I don't want to deal with it in person. After that, my husband had to go to the hospital, and the doctor filled him in on Susan's current situation. The doctor told my husband that Susan passed out because she got hurt in an accident. Her injuries weren't too serious, but she hurt her back and has to stay in the hospital for a while. It's really unfortunate, and I feel sorry for her. After work, my husband would go check on Susan, and then he returned home.
Mom, seems like she's feeling some pain. Her back is still giving her a lot of trouble. I really wish she gets better soon, but with her back in bad shape, it's gonna take a while.
My husband would say those things and tell me about how Susan's doing during dinner. I wasn't trying to shut him down from talking about that, but I could sense he was hinting at something important about Susan in our conversation. I could tell this was going to be a bit of a problem for me, so I just played dumb and dealt with it as needed. A month passed and my husband was still doing the same thing. He wouldn't stop updating me on Susan and her condition, even without me bringing it up.
Mom's getting out of the hospital real soon.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, she's all set to move back home. But there's still rehab to go through. I'm really worried about Mom during that time.
But she's still in the hospital, right? If something goes wrong, the nurses will show up thanks to the nurse call button, and you can figure out the next steps once she's out of the hospital.
That's true, but I'm afraid she's going to have a lot of trouble from now on.
I see. Well, you should try to keep in touch with her more often, right?
Yeah. I guess you're right.
My husband looked like he had a thought to share, but I wasn't keen on discussing it. I don't want anything to do with my mother-in-law, period. So, if he's looking for me to deal with her, it's not happening. After that, Susan finally got out of the hospital.
Well, I'm going to go pick up Mom from the hospital.
Okay.
When I pick up Mom, can I bring her over here?
Huh? What are you talking about? Don't even think about doing that.
Yeah, I know. I was just joking. Sorry, I'll drop her off at her place.
My husband never misses a chance to say annoying things like that. But I'm never going to back down on this. No way. Susan was really rude to my daughter, and I don't want to deal with someone like that. After that, my husband started going to Susan's house on his days off to see how she was doing.
So far, my mom is doing alright, but her rehab progress isn't looking good.
Oh, is that so?
I'll stay updated on how she's doing.
Yep, go for it. I'm not going to show any random kindness. I avoided the subject of his mom as much as I could. But then, about a month later, Susan's legs and back got even worse. She had to be admitted to the hospital once again.
Mom must be struggling a lot. It's pretty scary when your own body doesn't do what you say, right?
That's true. We need to make sure we're taking care of ourselves so we can stay healthy.
Huh? Well, yeah, that's true, but...
I never bother asking my husband what he meant when he talks about his mom. I think my husband is expecting me to do something about his mom. But I just pretended I didn't know and ignored him. My mother-in-law had to stay in the hospital for a week, and when she got out, she needed some nursing help. And my husband finally spoke up about what he wanted.
We're moving to my mom's house next month.
Huh?
My mom needs some help with nursing care. It would cost a lot of money to put my mom in a facility, wouldn't it? So you better take care of her at our home.
What are you talking about? I can't. I'm working. If I go to your mom's house, I won't be able to go to my part-time job, and besides, even Lauren would have to change schools. So, I'm definitely not going to your mom's house.
Huh? Then you and I are getting a divorce.
Saying that out of nowhere, my husband hit me with divorce papers. I wonder when he prepared those papers. And he's being so stubborn and controlling.
So? You wouldn't like it if I divorced you now, would you? If you become a single mother now, you wouldn't be able to support Lauren. You can't even pay for school without me, can you? So shut up and obey me.
Was he trying to intimidate me? I can't believe you're trying to use my vulnerability against me. It's just not right. Having you as my daughter's dad is no good for her learning. I immediately signed the divorce papers and started packing my things. I'm definitely ready to divorce you.
What the? Wait a minute. Are you really up for the divorce?
Yeah, of course I am. I made sure Lauren and I cut ties with your mom, so why are you forcing us to live with her? Plus, you're not even letting me say no because you're threatening me that you're the one providing for us. I don't want to be with someone as arrogant as you, and I definitely don't want to live under the same roof as your rude mom. So yeah, I'm definitely down for a divorce. Don't go regretting what you just did, alright? When I said that, my husband turned pale. I took our belongings and left the house with my daughter and just left my husband. I'll come back later to pick up the rest of our stuff. As I said that, I drove back to my parents' house. While driving, I told my daughter, I'm really sorry for everything, but she overheard my husband and I talking and felt sorry for me.
I get what you're saying, Mom. I don't want to live with Grandma either.
Thank you, Lauren. I had called my parents on the way and they greeted us warmly into their home. Eating my mom's food again after a long time was super comforting and helped me unwind and rest. The next day, however, I got a phone call from my husband. When I picked up the phone, I realized it was my mother-in-law calling.
Hey, Carla, why aren't you taking care of me since I'm your mother-in-law? My goodness, you're such a worthless daughter-in-law. If you get down on your knees and apologize now, I'll forgive you, so just get your butt over here.
I can't believe she went as far as using my husband's phone to tell me that. Honestly, I'd rather not have anything to do with a mean, bossy, and idiotic mother-in-law like you.
What? Idiotic?
Yeah, you're stupid for bringing up an idiot like my husband. And I can totally see you getting old and being a pain in the butt when you're older. If we end up with someone like you, Susan, both Lauren and I will end up feeling pretty awful. That's why we even cut ties with you. Besides, Jude and I are already divorced, so you and I are strangers.
I beg your pardon? Did you seriously submit those divorce papers?
Oh, could it be that Jude brought up the divorce papers because you mentioned it to him? Did you tell him that if he showed me those divorce papers, I'd seriously listen to him? It looks like I was spot on. Aw, too bad you didn't get what you wanted, Susan. But I'm glad I was able to get a divorce. Quick favor, can you tell Jude that I'll be getting a lawyer to handle the property division and child support? Thanks. Well then, I have nothing more to say to you, so I'm going to hang up now.
Oh, wait!
With that, I hung up the phone. Then I got my lawyer to handle filing a claim against my ex-husband for dividing our property and helping out child support. I'd be getting a hefty amount of money and some extra every month. And now I'm working full-time at the company where I used to do part-time hours. With this, I can afford to rent an apartment nearby so my daughter can stay at the same school. On the other hand, my ex-husband is struggling financially because he has to pay a lot for child support, his mom's hospital bills, and to cover the living expenses for 2 adults. Seeing them get what they deserve feels so good. They totally had it coming. Right now, I'm putting in a lot of effort at work and enjoying life with my daughter. I'll keep putting money aside for my daughter, watch her grow, and live a peaceful life. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.
Due to a fever, I missed a trip with my husband and in-laws, causing him to throw cold water on me. Clean up, he said, but I cleared the house instead.
I'm Meredith. I'm 52 years old. I live with my husband, Thomas, who is 59 years old, and our college student daughter, Autumn. I work as an insurance saleswoman. My husband seems to have become more irritable with age, although he wasn't like this in the past. His attitude towards store clerks and his foul language while driving are particularly bad. If a moped slows down during a right turn, he'll roll down the window.
Hurry up and turn,
he shouts, honking the horn. If the cashier at the supermarket forgets to include a fork with the pasta we bought,
are you saying I should eat with my hands?
He was always in such a state yelling like that. Every time we go out, our daughter and others end up hearing my husband's shouting. I don't want to go out with Dad anymore, she declares, starting to avoid him. When my daughter starts to avoid him,
why is Autumn acting like that towards me? Is she suddenly rebelling? Is it because of how you raised her?
My husband snapped at me. Your daughter started avoiding you because you yell at strangers with your own selfish rules. And even though I speak for my daughter, he would reply,
which one of us is doing the wrong thing? It's them.
And that just fueled the fire. Who's in the rebellious phase? Or is it that he's experiencing the terrible twos over 50 years late? It's truly awful. Hey, do you think it's really worth getting upset with others about these things? Can't we just try to keep things chill and not ruin the vibe? I asked to the contrary.
Thinking that it would ruin the vibe is just odd. That's something Autumn should fix.
Indeed. But I'm starting to feel like I can't keep up anymore. It seems that his daughter avoiding him has made it less amusing for him to let things slide. The tension is now directed towards both me and my daughter. If there's no toothpaste, tissue boxes start flying, and if there's no morning shirt prepared, oranges start flying. It's just too much. Mom and I are becoming the punching bags for venting your frustrations. And then one day my daughter exploded with dissatisfaction. Slowly, a sound echoes behind my eardrums. The sound of a crumbling home. Even though Mom comes home tired from work, just because there's no toothpaste, you get so angry and even throw things at me. It's totally unreasonable. Oranges or tissues won't cause any harm, right? If you prepare it yourself, it's no big deal, right? I can't keep up with you. I can't just go stepping on mines not knowing when they'll blow up, right? And so, my daughter continues to avoid her father more and more. My husband only takes it further because of this.
Why is Autumn's attitude towards me so bad?
He kicks the wash basin to intimidate me. The toothbrushes stacked up on the kicked wash basin fell with a clatter. It scattered all over. After that, I started to believe that my daughter, if not me, needed to find a way to escape from my husband's unreasonable clutches. In winter, even though I got the flu shot, because I work outside a lot, I still got the flu and had to stay in bed. I had a high fever of 103 degrees, but the timing was bad. It coincided with the plans my father-in-law had made to celebrate his 80th birthday abroad. My daughter couldn't go because of her university club activities, but my husband, father-in-law, and mother-in-law and I planned to go. Given the circumstances, I also suspected it might be COVID-19, but this time it turned out to be influenza.
It'll get better while we're abroad, so just come along. I've already booked the plane tickets and hotel reservations.
I was ordered by my husband. However, influenza is contagious, so I can't go. It's too risky. I had no choice but to refuse. It would not only inconvenience my in-laws and fellow passengers on the plane, but also those at the destination. But my husband was in the midst of his stubborn phase.
Don't mess with me. Why of all days is it happening today? I've been mentioning this day for a while now.
And then the desk was struck. Even if you say that...
It's because you have no self-discipline. And then you tell me to prepare everything by myself? Ugh, don't joke around.
With shouts and protests, my husband started preparing alone. Bang, bang. He began opening and closing the suitcase loudly, starting his preparations. The next morning, I was woken up by my husband yelling at me. It was still 4 o'clock. My husband woke up early to catch an early morning flight.
I stayed up all night because I had to prepare everything alone.
He shouts angrily. I'm sorry, but I also have a fever. Due to the flu, my voice had become hoarse. The fever shows no signs of going down and I keep coughing. My joints ache so much that I can't even get out of bed. Even though I got medicine from the hospital yesterday, instead of getting better, I feel worse than yesterday.
You're good at playing the sick role.
With disgust, my husband spits out. It's true, I really have a fever. I say in a hoarse voice. Then, in the kitchen, my husband turns the tap on full blast. There's a rushing sound. He fills a bucket with water in one go, and then...
If you have a fever, you should wake up.
Splash. He splashes cold water on me who's lying in bed under the covers. Huh? I can't respond in the heat of the moment. Drip by drip, water dripped down from my hair, pajamas, and the bedding, falling onto the floor. Puddles formed on the floor, and the drops of water made splashing sounds as they fell into the puddles. The area was soaked to that extent, and the mattress, soaked with plenty of water, made unpleasant sounds, squish, squish, as it absorbed the water.
Cool your head off with it.
My husband chuckled at my remark and then picked up his suitcase.
Make sure everything's clean by the time I get back. That goes for both the house and your head. Let this cool you down and reflect.
With a laugh, my husband left the door open and went out. The commotion woke up our daughter. "What? Mom!" Seeing the soaked floor, bedding, and me, she rushed over in shock. "What's going on?" She brought a towel and started wiping the floor and me. Between the fever, coldness, and shock from the water, my body trembled and my teeth chattered. With my teeth clattering, I spoke in fragments. "I had plans. I told you about this day. To cool down the fever. To clean the house and my head before you return." "How terrible!" My daughter wrapped me in a towel, but even as she did, tears filled her eyes and her hands trembled. Wrapped in that towel, I thought to myself, this trip was supposed to be a pre-retirement vacation for my husband. Once my husband retired, I thought we'd eventually do what we had planned. Let's just do it now. The timing just got a bit accelerated. That's all. "So I'm supposed to clean up before you come back, huh?" "Got it," I muttered. 3 weeks later, my husband returned. And right on time, when he was expected to arrive home, the phone rang. Since I had a hunch, I answered it.
"Hey, where are you right now?"
The volume on the phone was so loud that I wanted to move it away. I answered quietly nevertheless, in contrast to his tone. "I'm at my parents' place with Autumn."
"Why are you so calm?"
He responded aggressively to that tone as well. And then,
Why is this happening?"
His voice sounded like he was foaming at the mouth in frustration. Losing words is exactly what happens in moments like this. After all of this, there was no continuation. I was told to make it clean. Instead of words my husband couldn't muster, I responded with my voice. "You didn't say to make it this clean, did you? Well, I suppose I should have. But isn't it incredibly clean? I've cleared it completely." In front of my husband's eyes, where our house used to stand, there should be nothing but flat ground.
"Where's our house?"
My husband seemed breathless, sometimes at a loss for words, sometimes speaking rapidly, quite flustered. But while given that this was a sight and action that rarely happens in a lifetime, it's only natural for him to react this way. I explained to him. However, I didn't expect it to calm him down or make him understand. Originally, it was my parents' land, and I bought it under my name, right? Didn't you say that when you built the house there, you said it's your parents' land, so the house is in your name? So I made the decision myself. It's going to be a parking lot now.
"So, you think that's how it's gonna be?"
Before he could say, "Are you going through with this?" "Well, Autumn and I are at my parents' house, so let's talk there." I told him a few words and hung up the phone. My husband came in, dragging his suitcase. Since there was nowhere to put the luggage, he naturally just brought it along. The situation being what it was, my in-laws also arrived with him. Thanks to them, our living room was packed with my daughter, my parents, my in-laws, my husband, and 3 suitcases. As soon as he arrived home, my husband didn't even bother to greet my parents.
"Jeez, I come back from Italy exhausted, and now this? Is this how it's gonna be? Is this meant as some sort of retaliation? But seriously, this is going too far."
He started to clamor and rant and rave about it. And then,
"Eat this."
he threw what was probably meant to be a souvenir cheese. "You saw everything, didn't you?" I asked my in-laws, who had witnessed the entire affair. My husband himself doesn't seem to realize how inappropriate his actions are. It's become too commonplace.
"We've seen it all."
My in-laws had no choice but to answer. But my oblivious husband continued his barrage of accusations.
"Huh? What are you talking about? What did you see?"
Truly despicable. I'll show you. What you just did, it's a seriously hurtful act, you know.
"Huh? What do you mean? What act are you talking about? Besides, what does that matter? We're family after all."
Even within a family, there are good and bad things you can do. Saying eat this to anyone, that's not okay, right? I mean, even if it's not family, you've done it to other people before, haven't you? My daughter said. And turning to my parents-in-law, she continued, "Grandma and Grandpa, help." With these words, she played an audio clip on her phone. My in-laws listened to the audio clip. By the time they finished listening, their expression had changed to one of, "We have to help our grandchild." The audio clip began with the voice of my husband saying,
"Why isn't there any toothpaste?"
followed by the sound of something flying. "Ouch!" My scream could be heard.
"Stop whining over a tissue box. I'm busy in the morning. How could you run out of toothpaste?"
And it ended there. My daughter tapped on another audio clip. Then,
"There's no clean shirt here."
with my husband's angry voice, there was also a sound of things being moved.
"You wouldn't get a bruise from something like an orange. Do you expect me to go get my shirt from the dresser in the morning? At such a busy time?"
And then my daughter switched the screen of her phone from audio to image and showed a single photo. "This is from the morning of the trip." There in the photo was me soaked, the floor flooded, and the overturned bucket. Oh. By the time they heard the audio and saw the photo, my in-laws were already speechless.
"Meredith, it was the flu, right? You had a high fever. At such a time? This child."
My mother-in-law's voice trembled. While looking at this photo, I explained the situation to my in-laws. "This was the morning when my fever wouldn't go down. Thomas said, 'I'll cool your fever down.' He poured a bucket full of cold water over me."
"What? No. I can't believe."
At this point, my in-laws could only let out screams. Amidst that, there was another voice of surprise, but for a different reason. It was my husband.
"What? No."
Apparently, he hadn't thought he was being recorded as evidence. My daughter, trembling with fear, spoke up. "I was scared. So scared that something like this would happen. I started recording." She tightly gripped her phone, her voice trembling.
"We're sorry that it came to this, that we didn't notice. Couldn't do anything."
My mother-in-law tried to comfort my daughter, looking flustered. I continued with my explanation. "So, my daughter, due to the escalating nature of my husband's daily actions, started avoiding him, and him getting angry about that avoidance itself. I was considering divorce upon my husband's retirement."
"Huh?"
My husband's expression was like that of a deer caught in headlights.
"Divorce?"
It seemed like he hadn't even considered it. My husband, now in a state of panic, seemed to have lost his earlier bravado and was clinging on to me, wondering where it had all gone.
"Well, I didn't mean it like that at all. And besides, if things I've said or done have been tough on you all, why didn't you say something about it sooner?"
He starts to say. "Say something about what? I've told you countless times. Every time I've said it's not something worth getting angry about and it just ruins the mood. But even then you didn't stop," I said, deciding to quietly let out all the patience I've had until now. But despite this, my husband persists.
If you had said it more sternly."
I sighed. I think everyone is like that. When the victim explodes, the perpetrator often doesn't realize they're causing harm. This time is no exception. I decided to use this opportunity to talk to my parents and in-laws about everything he's done to others, including getting angry at other drivers during car rides and at the cashier in supermarkets. As for my husband,
"Did I really say such things? I don't think I did."
but each time, "I was there, I heard it," my daughter would say. It seemed like, for some reason, shouting made things clear for him. Even if he remembered or not, it seemed like he thought he only said a few words. As I listened to these various exchanges, I couldn't help but think. You often see people shouting at the supermarket, but I wonder if after they've done it, they forget what they said.
"So even then, just all these little things that I don't even remember. I mean, sure, I've piled them up, but still, it doesn't change the fact that they are all trivial, like making a fuss about small matters or going to such lengths,"
my husband said, bringing the conversation back. I understand that having the house cleared makes a terrifying visual impact, and it's understandable that it might shock you. However, my mother-in-law,
"You don't think you let it build up that much to explode? What's trivial about this?"
With a voice filled with equal parts anger and sadness, she squeezed out her words, causing my husband's momentum to wane. We were steadily preparing for retirement 2 months later. It's just that it happened earlier, so we could do it this soon, I said. My mother then said, "She had already consulted with us, and when you two separated, she came to our house. We too had heard many stories and felt that a divorce was inevitable, and we also wanted to evacuate our grandchild as soon as possible." This proved to us that her intention had existed for a long time. My mother-in-law then said, You might think it's trivial, but this is already a grave sin. I wonder how Autumn felt about recording and taking pictures with her phone. I wonder how Meredith felt about clearing the house. To imagine the resolve you made, it feels like my heart is about to burst. Don't you even have that kind of imagination? Can't you think from others' perspectives? Even if you don't expect forgiveness, apologize. Apologize not with "I'm sorry, please forgive me," but with the meaning "I'm sorry, I won't do it again." She shouted and slapped my husband on the back. Before my husband, she put her hands on the floor. At the same time, my father-in-law also placed his hands.
"I'm truly sorry. My son has been terribly disrespectful."
His father held my husband's head down to apologize. However,
"We're not getting a divorce. Don't make decisions on your own."
My husband continued to say something like that.
"You're really something."
With tears in her eyes, my mother-in-law fiercely slapped my husband's back.
"You must really have the heart of a demon to be able to listen to a recording like that and still feel like you're not leaving."
Hearing that, I thought, when we got married, my husband didn't have such a heart of stone in him, but with age, maybe a demon has taken residence. Thinking about it, I wondered if clearing the house might make the demon leave as well. I decided to sprinkle salt in the parking lot just in case. Eventually, we ended up with a mutual divorce, but my daughter's recordings served as evidence, acknowledging the psychological distress I endured daily, so I received compensation. My daughter and I stayed with my parents for a while, then we rented an apartment shortly after. I continued working at the life insurance company as usual. I felt relieved not to experience random stressors like oranges or tissues flying at me anymore. Looking back, it was quite a stressful situation. The site of the house was turned into a parking lot, which brought in a fixed income, which I used to save a little money for my daughter's wedding. My in-laws were truly furious and never allowed my husband to enter the house, seemingly to protect their grandchild. As for my in-laws,
"Stay away from my grandchild and leave this town,"
they told my husband, and he moved far away. I didn't care if I was going to be in the dark financially as he approached retirement and had to pay alimony. A few years later, my daughter got married. My mother-in-law and father-in-law were also present at the wedding. I'm able to hold the ceremony being cherished by everyone. Our daughter looked so happy, being watched over by both sets of grandparents. My mother-in-law, father-in-law, my parents, and I were all there for our daughter. I framed and displayed a group photo of all 6 of us tightly packed together.
At 2 a.m., my 7-year-old daughter, said to have mysterious powers, urged, "We have to escape from Dad now." We fled without question.
"Mom, hey, wake up!" Marin suddenly shook me awake, and as my eyes fluttered open, her anxious face came into view. Slowly, I sat up and asked her, "What's the matter, sweetie? Did you have a nightmare?" "No, Mom, please, we need to run away from Dad, now!" "Huh?" That single word snapped me out of my grogginess. The shocking statement that followed left me stunned. My name is Heather. I'm a typical 35-year-old, working while raising my 7-year-old daughter, Marin. She's a delightful and precious child, though a bit quirky, even magical in some ways. "Mom, you forgot your umbrella!" Marin called out as I was about to leave the house. "Huh?" The day's forecast was partly sunny with clouds. It was a day with many clouds, but patches of blue sky could be seen here and there. "It's fine, there's only a 10% chance of rain today." "Mom, you're going to get soaked! I saw it in a dream! Please, take an umbrella!" Reluctantly, I took the umbrella she handed me and headed to work, only to encounter a sudden downpour just before I was about to head home. "No way!" I muttered as I walked in, drenched, only to find Marin's equally wet umbrella in the stand.
Welcome back, Mom. See, I told you so.
She greeted me proudly. Ever since she was little, Marin had this uncanny ability to predict the weather or guess what we were having for dinner. It wasn't exactly psychic, but it was certainly unusual. Because of this trait, she sometimes stood out when playing with friends, but it didn't seem to bother her at all. We, as a family, have always embraced it as part of her unique character. More concerning to me was my husband, Kevin. We met through a matchmaking agency. Back then, I was all about my career, a real go-getter without much experience in dating. Frustrated, my parents pushed me to sign up. Kevin was even more handsome than he is now, and a feminist. I fell for him instantly. Our relationship smoothly progressed to marriage, and now we've been married for 10 years. Lately, he's been coming home late, sometimes even coming back in the morning. Marin's older now, but she's still 7. The burden of managing housework, childcare, and my job without his help has been overwhelming. When asked, he'd say, "Times are tough, and I need to save as much as I can for our daughter. You never know what might happen, so I have to work hard." When he said it was for our daughter, I couldn't argue, so I found myself juggling work, household chores, and solo parenting every day. One day, Kevin came home early, looking troubled. Keeping Marin away, I asked, "What's wrong? Something happened?" "Actually, I want to quit my job." "What?" This was completely unexpected. After Marin went to bed, he explained that he was struggling with workplace relationships and no longer found his job fulfilling. "Please, I can't take it anymore. Once I feel better, I'll look for another job, and in the meantime, I'll take over the household chores." Honestly, I didn't want him to quit his job, but it would be pointless if he pushed himself to the point of breaking down. All right. Reluctantly, I agreed to his request. Soon, I took on more work, and he became the homemaker. His cooking and cleaning were more haphazard than when I did them, especially the meals. I'd come home around 9 p.m. after our daughter was already asleep to eat my husband's cooking. He made a lot of deep-fried food, and the seasoning was so strong that I needed water. The first time I tried it, I couldn't help but confront him about it. "What is this? Did you feed this to our daughter too?" No. I made sure hers was milder. I thought you'd prefer stronger flavor since you're tired." "Too much fried food. Not enough vegetables. The soup barely has any flavor. I'd be fine with the kids' meals, and I wish you'd balance the menu more." Despite my complaints, not much changed. If I try to leave any food, he'd say, "I'll eat it with her tomorrow." Oh, hell no. If she was supposed to eat it, I'd rather eat it myself. He apologized by serving desserts after meals, and thinking he was comforting me, he also began preparing an evening set with drinks and snacks. I wasn't much of a drinker or late-night eater, but I didn't want to disregard his efforts. Despite my reservations, I appreciated his homemade meals and effort as a homemaker. It was a relief not to handle the housework. After 6 months of being the main breadwinner, I finally had a day off with no plans. However, I felt oddly unwell all morning, experiencing lethargy and headaches. After every meal, I seemed to fall asleep very quickly. I might have been pushing myself too hard at work. Luckily, Kevin had taken Marin to the mall and promised to call if anything happened. I was grateful for his thoughtfulness, allowing me to rest. As I dozed off, I silently thanked my husband. "We're home!" I woke up to the sound of the front door opening and my husband's voice. I realized it was already evening. I hadn't eaten much and seemed to have slept since late morning. "Welcome back. Sorry I couldn't spend time with you today, sweetie. Did you have fun? I asked Marin, noticing her clutching a palm-sized character mascot she probably got while out. She nodded quietly, looking down, which was unusual for her. What's wrong? Did something happen? Kevin responded. She might just be tired from walking all day. I'll get the bath ready for you so you can get to bed early, okay, Marin? He gently placed his hand on Marin's shoulder, and she quietly went up to her room. After she was out of sight, I whispered to Kevin. Hey, she seemed off. Did you scold her too harshly? No, I didn't do anything. I think she's just tired. By the way, about dinner? I tensed up at his words, weary of his cooking. About dinner, well, I'll cook tonight. I've rested all day and feel energized. Oh, okay. I'll handle the drinks then. I even bought dessert as usual, he said, smiling as he lifted a bag with the logo of a famous cream puff shop showing through. Today, I make a low-calorie, nutritious meal. Later, the three of us ate dinner together. I took a bath with Marin and decided to sleep together for the first time in a while. Though she smiled when it was just us, I could tell she was anxious, and so I wanted to spend as much time together as possible. Mom, listen, Marin said in our bedroom, her voice so soft I could barely hear her through the blanket. What is it, sweetie? Don't drink tonight. Was this another one of her little premonitions? I nodded, acknowledging her serious expression, and she closed her eyes in relief. I decided to go to bed early, before Kevin could start preparing for our evening drinks. Surely he wouldn't wake me up for that. If he did try, I'd pretend to be asleep. With that thought, I closed my eyes. Mom! Hey, wake up! Marin shook me awake suddenly, and I realized I had indeed fallen asleep. Her anxious face filled my groggy vision as I checked the bedside clock. It was 2 a.m., and Kevin, who should have been sleeping next to me, was nowhere to be seen. Maybe he was in the bathroom. Slowly sitting up, I asked her, What's wrong, sweetie? Did you have a nightmare? No, Mom, please, we need to run away from Dad. Now! Huh? Her words jolted me awake. What did she just say? Trying to stay calm, I asked softly. Why? Why would you say that? It's our chance with Dad not here. Because otherwise, you might get sick or have an accident. She blurted out, her words shocking me as tears started rolling down her cheeks. What's going on here? I pulled her into my lap, soothing her trembling back until she calmed down and began to speak. According to Marin, she returned from the restroom at the mall to find Kevin on the phone. I had always told her not to interrupt when someone was on the phone, so she quietly listened. Dad said it won't be long before she's gone. I'll make it look like an accident or illness. That way we can collect the insurance money and be together. Who was he talking to? I don't know. I thought it was you on the phone at first, but it wasn't. Dad was bad-mouthing you to the person and he told them he loved them. If this was true, Kevin was planning to get rid of me for good, and on top of that, he had another woman. Marin continued sobbing. He said he loved someone else, not you, Mom. I was so surprised, so I just called out, Dad? Then he immediately hung up the phone and asked, How long have you been there? Just now, I replied, and he smiled, saying, It's a secret from Mom, okay? If you don't tell, you'll have a cute and kind mom. She said this, hugging me with her eyes and nose red. But I want you, Mom. I don't need a cute and kind mom. I love you. Just you. She clung to me, crying loudly. At that moment, Tears overflow from the guilt of putting her through this and anger towards Kevin for his words. My daughter had bravely tried to protect me. How scared she must have been. How much courage it must have taken. Then I carried her down to the front door. The moment I noticed Kevin's favorite shoes were missing, I believed Marin's words, and any slight trust I had in my husband vanished. Marin mentioned that this wasn't the first time he had left late at night. She had seen him leave several times when going to the bathroom in the middle of the night. How had I never noticed before? If she had seen him multiple times, it must have been frequent. As doubts about my husband swirled, I noticed my daughter gripping my skirt tightly and realized now was not the time for that. I needed to respond to her courage. Thanks to skipping the drinks, I felt more alert and clear-headed than usual. I looked into my daughter's eyes intently. Marin, sweetie, if we run away from Dad now, we might never see him again. Will you still come with me? Yeah, I'm scared of Dad. I like being with you, Mom. I want to stay with you forever. That settled it. I made up my mind. Luckily, Marin was in the middle of her summer vacation. I told her to pack what she needed, and I quickly gathered our things. But when I checked the drawer for valuables, I was shocked. Sure enough, opening another drawer I rarely used confirmed my fears. Anger flared up within me, but escaping was our priority for now. We quickly left the house before dawn and took refuge at my parents' home. They were surprised to see us so early, but welcomed us warmly after I explained everything and showed them the evidence I had found. After the sun was well up, I sent a message to Kevin. Mom had an accident. I'm taking Marin and going back home for about a month to help out, so please take care of the house while we're away. Understood. Leave everything here to me. His casual acceptance was alarming. He probably relished the prospect of having the house to himself. For now, I'd play it cool, but I wouldn't let this go, not for my daughter's sake. Once we were at my parents', Marin, still with tear-streaked cheeks, fell asleep immediately. I made a crucial phone call. After a month at my parents', I decided it was time to return home. I kept my smartphone in my front pocket as I unlocked the door and entered the living room. Kevin, who had been fretting over his phone, tried to smile nonchalantly upon seeing me. Oh, you're back. Don't come back suddenly like that. You'll give me a scare. Hey, how about I make us some iced coffee with lots of milk and sugar? I was no longer the person to be deceived by such distractions. No thanks. Instead, I need you to sign something for me. As he started towards the kitchen, I confronted him with the divorce paper. Kevin sighed heavily after a glance at the document. Divorce, huh? Well, if that's really what you want, I'll go along with it. His calm acceptance infuriated me, but he continued, smiling. I'll agree to the divorce, but since you're the one who brought it up, you'll accommodate my wishes regarding the division of assets, right? What are you talking about? You should be the one paying. What? He looked dumbfounded, shaking his head in disbelief. Come on, I've supported you in my own way. And now you're just gonna serve me, a good husband, with divorce papers just like that? A good husband? One who skips work to cheat and tries to put his wife in danger? His stupefied expression made me snort. I pulled out a small bottle of pills from the rarely used drawer and showed it to him. The label read, "For stubborn insomnia, 1 pill for a sound sleep till morning." That's just for when I can't sleep. It's pretty obvious if you look, but none have been used since I left. I took pictures of everything before I left the house. Shall we compare? Don't make stuff up. Besides, do you have any proof that I was going to use that on you? I know all about the affair you've been having. What? I sat back down with the bottle in hand and pulled an envelope from my bag, spilling its contents in front of him. His face went ashen as he stared at the printed messages from his affair, proof of his infidelity and plans. I took a day off so I can meet you. Wait for me. I've quit my job so we can talk more. I love you. I've got something that'll make sure she won't wake up so I can see you during that time. We'll be together soon. Just wait for me, my princess. These messages detailed his lies about overtime and his plans to endanger my life, aligning with the unhealthy, high-salt, high-fat, and high-sugar meals he'd been feeding me. No wonder I felt ill. On top of that, he must have tampered with my drinks while I was in the bath. I rarely drank alcohol, so I didn't notice until I tried the same drink at my parents' house. The difference in taste shocked me and confirmed my suspicions. I started feeling strangely sluggish around the time I began eating your cooking. I'd fall asleep quickly, but never felt rested. Of course, not with alcohol and these pills, a dangerous combination. Kevin's face turned pale, his eyes darting around. Why do you even have that? You didn't snoop through my phone, did you? That's an invasion of privacy. Nope, she gave it to me herself. What? I flipped another envelope for him to see, his face going even paler as photos spilled out showing him cozy with a young woman. Right after returning to my parents, I believed Marin's words and hired a detective to follow Kevin. He had no idea I suspected anything. Within days of us leaving, he had his mistress over, living as if newlyweds. It was easy to uncover her identity and workplace. A few days ago, I negotiated with your mistress. I showed her the photos, and she agreed to provide evidence in my favor in exchange for a reduced settlement. She handed over her phone willingly. He alternated between looking at the phone and the photos, muttering to himself stuff like, "That's why she was saying that. She betrayed me." I tapped the divorce papers on the table. Now, to the main point. With all this evidence, I could go to the police, but I don't want to make my daughter's father a criminal. Then, sign the divorce papers. And you'll pay the settlement amount, alimony, and yes, you'll reimburse the savings you spent on your mistress, right? Wait, it was just a fling. We can't get a divorce. That's too... Whether it was a fling or not doesn't matter. You betrayed your family. You inflicted terrifying trauma on our daughter. You plotted to kill me. After all that, thinking you could be forgiven is just too much. As I spoke, Kevin collapsed to his knees. Just then, he grabbed my leg, glaring up at me with desperate eyes. It's your fault for not being a more agreeable wife. You think I'm just gonna let you go quietly? As he raised his fist, I clenched my jaw and glared back, pulling out my phone fully. I've been recording this conversation since I entered the house, just in case. What? His fist paused midair. As soon as his grip loosened, I quickly stood up and gathered the documents I had brought with me. The person on the other end of the line is my father and lawyer. They're waiting just around the corner, ready to come in at any moment. No, wait, it's not like that. I'm recording this conversation, so I'll use it as evidence. From now on, we'll communicate through our lawyers. I left my husband speechless and collapsed on the floor as I walked out of our house with my belongings. I got into the car where my father and the lawyer were waiting, sighed deeply, and called my mother, who was looking after Marin. When Marin answered the phone, she cheerfully called out to me. "Mom, are you done talking with Dad?" "Yes, sweetie." "I'm sorry, but after talking, it's clear we can't live with Dad anymore." There was silence on the other end. Guilt washed over me for taking her father away, even though I knew it was the right thing to do. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. It's just, well... It's okay, Mom. I understand. I'm here with you now. She reassured me with a gentle voice. Tears welled up as my father, sitting beside me, supported my shoulder. After that, we divorced. The apartment we lived in was sold as part of the settlement, and I moved back to my parents' house. Kevin, unemployed and unable to afford a lawyer, couldn't pay the settlement amount and ended up begging his parents for help. His parents were furious with him and paid us everything he owed as an apology. Kevin then tried to rely on his mistress, but she quickly dumped him. Unable to find a good job, he now struggles with long hours of part-time work, as I heard from his parents. Meanwhile, I started a new life with my parents and Marin. With the change, she stopped saying strange things and made good friends at our new school, enjoying her days. We might face various challenges in the future, but I vowed to raise Marin well and ensure her happiness, promising this to my empty ring finger.
After I cut ties with my bullying in-laws, my husband demanded that I do the caregiving for his mother as a good wife.
You really aren't considerate, and you're so inefficient, too. You must have got it from your parents.
I just smile bitterly when my mother-in-law says this. Seeing my reaction, my father-in-law adds,
She's right. Poor Anthony.
You know, it's never too late to get remarried to a different woman. Your father and I'll look for the right one for you.
Why do they have to have this conversation in my presence? What on earth did I do? My name is Megan. I married Anthony 3 years ago. Following that, I switched my job to part-time. The reason was that Anthony's job was very demanding. It was difficult for both Anthony and I, who were both full-time employees, to share the housework. So we discussed and agreed that I would quit my company and work part-time. With me having more free time, I would take care of the household. Since we both agreed on this, of course I had no complaints. I loved Anthony, and I was happy to devote myself to him.
Thank you, Megan. You've been so helpful.
Anthony is a kind husband who frequently expresses his gratitude like that. I felt happy to have such a husband. However, I had one source of distress. It was about Anthony's parents.
Megan! You're not wasting Anthony's earnings, are you?
Ugh. These days, women also have a full-time job, right? And yet, why are you leeching off Anthony?
Every weekend, the two of them coming to our house and tormenting me had become a routine.
Mom? Dad? Don't say weird things to Megan.
Anthony always defended me. However,
we're saying this for your sake.
Anthony, Mom and Dad mean well, you know?
They didn't listen at all. Anthony is the only son they had at the age of 40. Maybe that's why, or perhaps it's always been this way. But both of them, especially his mother, loved him excessively.
Hey, Anthony, I brought your favorite snacks.
Anthony, I bought the fishing rod you wanted for you.
They would treat their grown son like a baby. And perhaps as the flip side of that, I was treated as the terrible woman who stole their son. I had noticed the abnormal love of Anthony's parents for him from the beginning of our marriage. But Anthony himself wasn't too clingy to his parents, and he would sternly scold them when they were rude. Each time that happened, my love for Anthony grew deeper, and I was grateful that he defended me. But no matter what Anthony said, the in-laws wouldn't stop visiting our home. Every visit, they would wander around the house, and if there was even a little trash or dust, they would start accusing me. They complained about my cooking, and I knew they spoke ill behind my back that I still didn't have a child.
You really aren't considerate, and you're so inefficient too. You must have got it from your parents.
To that, my father-in-law adds,
She's right. Oh, poor Anthony.
Saying that and pretending to worry about Anthony, they scorned me. And in the end, they would even say,
You know, it's never too late to get remarried to a different woman. Your father and I'll look for the right one for you.
How can you say that? I couldn't stand those words. That's going too far.
How dare you talk back? You're just a daughter-in-law. As he said, such a wife isn't suitable for my dear Anthony.
That's right. Anthony, if this continues, maybe you should consider divorce.
Anthony looked troubled, looking back and forth between me and his parents. I had never argued back no matter what was said before. The more I would argue, the worse it would get. So, I thought it was better to let them say what they wanted. However, suggesting divorce was something I couldn't overlook. I really thought Anthony would shout at his parents, but he just looked troubled. Hey, say something, Anthony. I inadvertently asked Anthony for help.
Yeah. That wasn't nice.
I felt strange about Anthony's weak attitude, unlike usual. Usually, he would scold his parents by saying something like,
"Don't say such terrible things to Megan."
But that day, for some reason, Anthony just looked troubled. After the two left, I directed my anger at Anthony. I can't stand it anymore. Give me a break. Thinking about what it's like for me, being invaded by them every week, ugh, why do I have to be told such horrible things every time? I was so frustrated that tears fell on the spot. I married Anthony because I loved him. We are living happily together, and I'm trying so hard to be a good wife. Why do I have to spend time with someone who can disparage somebody so easily? It made me feel sad, as if they threw cold water on me and all my efforts.
I'm sorry. I understand.
Anthony apologized, hugging my shoulders, looking sorry. I've reached my limit. I can't deal with your parents anymore.
Okay. So, what do you want to do?
I feel bad for you, but I don't want to be involved with them anymore. And so, I completely cut ties with my in-laws. I settled for the minimum greeting calls during the holidays and never visited their home again. Of course, they didn't come to our house anymore, nor did they call me. Anthony handled it well. I thought of Anthony as reliable once again. We could live happily and carefree from now on. That's what I thought. But things moved in a strange direction.
Hey, Megan. Bring me a beer.
You're on your third one already? Shouldn't you stop at this point?
Shut up. Don't tell your husband what to do.
After I cut ties with my in-laws, Anthony's attitude changed completely, as if he were a different person. Stop leaving your socks in the hallway. Your shirt is lying around too. You're not a child.
Huh? Just put it in the washing machine for me. You should be the one doing the chores.
I had never seen Anthony like this before. He used to be meticulous and always expressed gratitude, caring for me. There was no trace of the old Anthony. What on earth happened? Could it be because he can't see his parents like he used to? While thinking about things like this, I myself was troubled. And then, one day, "Hey, Anthony, this month's living expenses haven't been transferred to the account yet." I used to receive a fixed amount from Anthony at the beginning of every month for living expenses. From there, I managed payments for groceries, rent, and other expenses. However, when I checked the account to withdraw money for some grocery shopping, the balance had not changed. Maybe he forgot because he's so busy? Thinking so, I asked him about it during dinner. But Anthony looked at me with a truly cold expression.
You're just after my money, aren't you? You can't do anything without me. Just always asking for money.
Why would you say that?
Properly beg and ask if you want some.
Anthony demanded. Hey, what's wrong? You've been acting strange lately. I was terrified by the change in Anthony. Is this person really him? Could it be that someone else who looks just like him has swapped places? That's what I felt. However, Anthony laughed off my words.
Huh, you're the strange one. How could one cut ties with her husband's parents?
It couldn't be helped. Your parents were saying awful things to me.
Just as Mom said, maybe you were a dud wife after all.
Anthony said while sighing. A dud wife? Those words coming from Anthony's mouth? I was stunned, unable to believe it.
If you beg right here, I'll transfer the money.
Anthony was looking at me with a smirk throughout. I began to doubt our marriage. As the love for him gradually cooled, I was losing confidence in continuing as a couple. But I hesitated to bring up divorce. Isn't it unacceptable to divorce over something like this? Since we got married to be lifelong partners, shouldn't we not be discouraged by such things? And I had a faint hope that if we talked about it, Anthony might return to his old self. Then one day, unsettling news came in.
Megan, it seems Mom has collapsed.
Anthony called me in a panicked tone. Collapsed? What does that mean?
I don't know. Dad just called me now.
Is that so? Not knowing what to say, I just responded passively.
For now, I'm going to head to the hospital.
Saying that, Anthony hung up the phone. I was relieved that he didn't tell me to come along, as I did not want to be involved with the in-laws. I might be seen as a bad person, but that was my honest feeling. And that night, Anthony told me the details.
They said it was a stroke.
A stroke? Is she okay?
She barely survived, but...
What?
The doctor said she might have paralysis afterwards.
I see. Indeed, it's said that 30% of stroke patients are left with paralysis. Given my mother-in-law's age, the likelihood was high. Anthony seemed disheartened. Though I had cut ties, I couldn't remain indifferent.
So I discussed with Dad, and we think you should take care of Mom.
What? I blurted out stupidly at the sudden announcement. Why has Anthony decided that I should take care of his mother? And telling me this not even as a proposal or a request, but as a decision? Hold on. Why me?
It's time for you, as a wife, to fulfill your role. Isn't that great?
A role? What do you mean? Is there a rule that a wife has to take care of her husband's parents? When I said that, my husband deliberately sighed deeply.
Do you know how much pain you've caused, Mom?
What are you talking about? I'm the one who suffered terribly. Your parents just did whatever they wanted and tormented me.
That's just your delusion.
You saw it too. I refuse to do such care for your mother. You and your dad should handle it. When I strongly opposed, my husband glared at me angrily.
Fine. If you won't take care of Mom, then it's divorce. Get out right now.
It seems he expected me to silently accept the caregiving after this, but that was not going to happen. Fine, I'll leave. But you understand, right? Don't regret it.
Regret? That would be on your part. You have no money or job, yet you speak so arrogantly. Get out. Now.
So, is it a divorce then?
Of course. A divorce.
Anthony yelled at me like that. I didn't imagine a divorce could be decided so easily. But caring for my mother-in-law is a joke. Better to divorce than do something like that. The old Anthony was long gone. I realized that. The divorce was decided all too easily, and I was taken aback. Until the end, Anthony mocked me as I was left without support, insulted me as a stupid woman. I just brushed it off and silently signed the divorce papers. Well then, goodbye. Don't contact me ever again.
Who would?
And just like that, our married life ended after 3.5 years. After the divorce, I returned to my previous company as a full-time employee. The company, which was originally short-staffed, had asked me several times to come back, but I had declined because I had a family. However, once I was divorced, I was free. I immediately contacted my former boss and arranged my return.
Megan, having you back really helps us.
Thank you for letting me come back.
By the way, I've been assigned to plan a new project. Would you like to join me?
Yes, please let me participate. My relationships at work were good, and my job was going smoothly. When I was married, it was all about family. Troubled by my in-laws and subjected to my husband's psychological abuse, I had no time to think about myself. Finally, I felt truly alive, living for myself and enjoying fulfilling days. However, I ended up meeting someone I didn't want to see. One day after work, I saw a familiar man standing in front of the company. I thought to ignore him, pretending not to notice, and started walking towards the station. However, I was found immediately.
Megan!
It was Anthony, my ex-husband. He spotted me and ran over. Why are you here?
You don't answer my calls, so I had no choice but to come here.
I divorced him under the condition that he should never contact me again. Had he forgotten that? It was a weekday, yet Anthony was in casual clothes and his hair was unkempt.
I just want to talk.
There's nothing to talk about. Goodbye.
Wait.
Anthony grabbed my arm. At that moment, I noticed a strange smell. I almost pinched my nose. It was nothing other than Anthony's body odor. He probably hadn't bathed in a while.
Just listen to me for a bit.
Moved slightly by Anthony's desperation and the odor wafting around him, I decided to listen.
Actually, after Mom came home, Dad fell victim to a scam.
A scam?
He apparently put almost all our savings into cryptocurrency, but the person he gave the money to ran off with it. We planned to use that money to put Mom in a caregiving facility, but now we have to care for her at home.
His father, who receives a small pension, had tried to increase his meager savings through investment. Seduced by a good story from an acquaintance, he was quickly scammed. Did you report it to the police?
I did, but the criminal hasn't been caught, and even if caught, the money won't come back. Dad's been so shocked he's always in bed and he's lost all his energy.
Seeing Anthony so worn out, it seemed the household was in a dire state. So what do you want from me? If it's money, look elsewhere.
Megan, please, come back.
Anthony was on his knees.
I need you, please.
You mean as a caregiver? It seems I hit the mark. Anthony's corners of his mouth turned up.
You're quick. That's actually it.
Ugh, what audacity.
I'm taking time off work to care for my mother now, and with Dad like that, I can't get promoted. I'm really struggling. Caregiving takes so much physical strength. My back and legs are breaking down. I can't even take care of myself. See, isn't it pitiful?
From Anthony's unclean appearance and expression, the hardship of caregiving was evident.
You're hardly earning much, right? If we remarry, you can use my money all you want.
Anthony kept talking as if assuming I would agree. I made the mistake of nodding along as if I was enthusiastic about the proposal.
So, when can you come? You can come back today if you want to.
Anthony was grinning at me. What are you talking about?
Huh? Well, you're taking on the caregiving, right?
Who said such a thing? No way I'm doing that. Anthony's face fell into despair. The contrast from his smiling face was so pitiful I almost burst out laughing.
Megan, you can't be serious. Are you just going to leave me like this?
Turning the question around, why do you think I would save you? Think about what your parents and you have done to me. I coldly pushed Anthony away.
It's not true. This can't be.
Anthony seemed like he could not yet accept the reality, and he muttered, as if delirious. I'm busy, you know. I have places to go, so goodbye.
Wait, Megan.
No matter how much he called, I didn't look back. Of course. Why should I return to such a life like a slave? Let him understand what his family has done and regret it. One evening after days of peace, I finished work and hurried to a place.
Sorry to keep you waiting.
You must have been busy at work, but I'm glad you made it.
You too, Megan.
At the restaurant, we commended each other's efforts for the day. He's the chairman of a social welfare corporation that does business with my company. His name is Jason, a young entrepreneur who develops high-end senior care homes that could even be mistaken for high-rise luxury apartments. While I was troubled by my ex-husband's stalking, he advised me in various ways, and we started dating 6 months ago. Being divorced was not an issue for him, and I cherished Jason just as much. In the near future, I plan to marry him and become the vice chairman to support him. I'll do my best. As a woman, I vow to live my best life, both in work and in personal life. I sometimes wonder how Anthony's mother's caregiving is going. Every time I look up at the beautiful senior care home run by Jason, I think of life's irony. Perhaps I should thank my ex-husband for carelessly signing the divorce papers on that day. After all, he has given me such a happy life. While holding back my laughter, I savored the French cuisine with my bright and entertaining beloved one.